In terms of leadership and I guess learning, we're quite patchy in terms of how we align to strategy. So you'll find we're a very big organisation, a lot of different silos and functions. We've got a very interesting relationship with the Coca-Cola Company, who have about a 30% stake of CCA, and really that relationship is often tested in terms of what is the actual strategy for growth. How do we make sure that the products coming through the stage gate or funnel, not tunnel, is actually innovative and aligns to the strategy? Big challenge for us. Accountability and ownership, that's an obvious one. I'm going to speed up here. Sponsorship and permission and support is often a big challenge. Budget cuts. So often at times when times are a bit tough, like it is for us, one of the first things to get cut is innovation, which is ironic, given that when you turn the corner, you want to be growing when the market turns around. Incentives as an intrapreneur. How do we actually have incentives for our staff to really get on and innovate? Big challenge. Problem and opportunity definition. Often you find folks in brand and people in marketing come up with these great ideas. What's the actual problem that it's trying to solve for? What's the unmet need that this is going to touch? Often it's not really well articulated because folks don't actually challenge themselves to think that way. Some of these are probably fairly open-ended. Resource commitment. Often innovation in our business is a side of desk project, a little pet project. How do you bring that off the side of the desk onto the desk? I know that sounds trite, but it's really actually having the right resources dedicated to innovation, a big challenge. So what are we doing? What are some of the active steps that we're taking to address innovation within Coca-Cola? It's kind of 4 buckets. The first is around capability, and I think Bruce alluded to that. So human-centered design is a big program of work for us. Those of you might be familiar with it. It's taking a real customer-centric lens or user lens on all things innovation. So think about the user first and work backwards and understand what the actual unmet need is. Innovate program, we've got an Innovate program. It's made up of 3 parts. One is around prototype funding. So we've actually got a bucket of funds that we actually give to various folks to come up with an innovation. We have a Bright Idea program, which is a technology solution to actually manage ideation all the way through to execution. We have an awards program, so once a year we have a big song and dance. It was at the Australian Zoo, Sydney Zoo, not so long ago, where we actually award the top innovative ideas and make a pretty big splash of that. And then an improved, what we call NPC process, which is a new product commercialization process. So this gate process, as I mentioned, at the moment it's a tunnel. So we have all the products coming through and almost all of them get out the other end. You need to have a funnel where you have a really strong, rigorous, disciplined approach to cutting innovations that are just not going to cut the mustard, while at the same time giving some airspace to some of those more nimble products that need to go much quicker, or ideas that need to go much quicker through the process. Still a work in progress for us, but certainly a big effort. Ecosystem. So we have a number of brand partners. Monster is one of them. Coca-Cola is another one. Getting much stronger alignment with those brand partners on what is truly going to make a difference. How are we going to grow this business? It's been a big focus. The last 9 months of my job has been 80% doing that, just making sure our brand partners are on page. Cross-function and cross-state collaboration. So as most businesses, in my experience, they're quite siloed in terms of their functions. You'll be amazed how extraordinarily difficult it is to draw a line from the front end of the business all the way through to the back end. It's unbelievably difficult. So no business has got this right in my experience, and so we're no different. And how do we actually innovate across the value chain is a real key challenge. Engagement reinvented, so this idea of a growth mindset. You know, we've enjoyed many years of kind of growth almost by accident. But when the tide goes out and all the rocks come out, how do you still get back into a growth mindset so you can actually jump over some of those rocks and get the river flowing again? Big challenge for us. Communication, sharing, and really celebrating where people have perhaps failed. Hopefully they fail fast. We get that back up and we get those learnings incubated into the business. A big challenge for us. How do we do that more efficiently? That's a quick whistle stop 10-minute tour. Is that okay, Bruce?
Thank you very much, Jacques. I was really struck when Jacques was speaking then about the competition that's emerging from Chinese companies. I've studied Chinese companies quite a lot, and a number of areas in which they are much faster than we are, and much more quick to come up with new innovations, is first of all their tremendously deep understanding of their customers, which Jacques was pointing out is now the focus of where Coca-Cola Amatil wants to begin. Secondly, their willingness to try something quickly. They don't wait for a very long process of approvals and so on before they launch a prototype on the market. Rapid prototyping is something Chinese companies do very, very well. And I've looked at multinationals in China in comparison with Chinese companies, and they're often much slower at these things because they have these very well-developed and very tried and true processes for innovation, the stage gate process that Jacques referred to. Chinese companies are not quite as sophisticated, but they get products out there very quickly, and they learn from their mistakes, and then they can quickly change and innovate. So these are some of the themes we're going to pick up later, and in the discussion at the end, I'm hoping Jacques and the others will have more time to talk about the processes they're actually using inside their companies to deal with these problems. Let's now turn to Leonard Rowe. As I mentioned, Leonard is with AME Research. He's had a lot of experience in the mining industry, and particularly in the robotic mines that have been developed by Rio Tinto. So over to you, Leonard. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Jacques, thank you. That was very informative. And a lot of my talk will actually be focusing on some very similar themes. I suppose it's very interesting when people ask me to talk about mining. It's not the most exciting, innovative industry. It is not an industry that people think is driving innovation substantially. For example, when I joined Rio Tinto as a mining engineer and I worked on the field, I was involved in AHS, and I've got a video. I'm going to show you some video how this technology works. So a bit about my presentation. I'm going to talk about how it's disturbed not just the industry, but how professionals, the new generation, our companies need to think and lead in a big organisation and as individual entrepreneurs. So it's going to be a bit different. So I just thought I'd ask, before I start, just a couple of questions. So can I have a guess how much the mining industry spends on innovation in Australia? GDP, or billions per year? Any idea? The mining industry spends, on average, 12.8 billion Australian dollars just in Western Australia alone, just on optimising our production chains. Now, in terms of competition, iron ore, just a bit of background before I get into the video. Iron ore is Australia's biggest export, followed by coal and then education. It's our three biggest exports. In terms of volume, iron ore is about 120 billion annually. So that is a lot of money coming into Australia if we think about this. Now, it's very easy when I actually just had a dinner with Ms. Reinhardt, who I actually advise on innovation, which is quite an interesting lady to talk to. And we always get the conversation in the media that Australia is the best at mining. And I can tell you that is not the case. Vale, which is Brazil, is our biggest iron ore competitor. 400 million tonnes per annum. If you times that by a mining cost of $6 a tonne, they're selling their iron ore at $75 a tonne. That's quite a good revenue margin. So for Australia, our whole industry is based on that ability to cut down our costs in innovation, in a very industry that's so generations of mining, the way we see it in the field. So I'm just going to show you a video, which is actually a Rio Tinto video, which you can go on YouTube. The reason I use this video in most of my presentations is it talks about Rio Tinto as an organisation having to adapt to new technology. So I'm not going to watch the whole video, I'm going to stop it, but I'm actually going to show you how the trucks drive on their own. So for cost saving, for efficiency, we save $170,000 per annum for not having a truck driver in the cab. One truck. So if you times that by the operation, it's quite impressive. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about it. Sorry,
we're moving mining forward to help meet that challenge by deploying advanced technologies. We're making Rio Tinto safer, more productive and more efficient. We know the brain power to transform mining won't come from our industry alone, which is why we're creating a network of some of the best minds in the world. We're working with world-leading institutions with access to assets worth more than $450 million.
So, as you can see, the theme I just want to show you in that was, you see this innovation, big data. So data is the weapon of the new future. So for us, it is understanding. So in terms, you saw that truck, you would have seen the image, and it had no driver and had the cameras. So these trucks, who's seen Tron, the sci-fi movie? Anyone seen Tron? You got the grid? Yep. That is how AHS technology works. A pit is a grid. The road is programmed and designed by engineers like myself in the past, and I bring this into the finance market now, which tells a truck what to do. What's the speed, what's the pressure? And how does Rio Tinto change that mindset? If you can imagine, I don't know if you met many miners, they'd like to have beers at the pub, take life easy. And you're saying, we're going to put all this new technology in. You know, people are threatened about their jobs, they're talking about their livelihood. How do you change that mindset? First thing is safety. Since AHS, we can see where the trucks stop, which that's a very big cost saving. But also is with efficiency and data. And that last image you would have seen, actually in the, sorry. So see here, this operation, so it's a virtual grid. So the trucks drive on their own. So we had to change how we design a mine. Roads have to be wider, they do it on radars. It's AI technology, they think for themselves. They also use their individual. This is a control centre in Perth. This now is bigger and controls more than Houston NASA Space Centre, built in Australia, 100% Australian technology. We operate mines that are 1,500 kilometres away from Perth. So these are the radars. So they're picking up all the technology and the interference with the roads. All this data information provides us with intel, how to cut our mining costs down. So for example, before we had AHS, or mining autonomous technology, our mining costs in Australian iron ore was about $12.50 per tonne. Since the full rollout, we've got that down to $5.50 per tonne. So that is a huge, substantial cost saving. Also because with data, and this is where innovation, I tell companies where they need to look at, is how you actually capture your data when you roll out innovation, is the biggest challenge that must be accepted. The information we found was when do trucks stop? Where are the details? We map that. We look at how many delays there are. So then what we can do, redesign a concept of a mine. We change the way we design mine roads. So we cut down delays. We're running the trucks at faster speed. But one of the biggest cost savings and technology rollout doesn't go as planned. This is the argument I tell you. So you may say, oh, we don't need as many operators or technical people on site. Well, that was wrong. They thought all the technical people could be in Perth. All those people saw in the control centre are your old truck drivers who operate the computer. And what they found was to save money, Rio Tinto, and it doesn't always go smooth